forward. All right, yeah. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we are going to be looking at log collection and compliance. So just before we deep dive into that, I'll just quickly recap on what we did last week. We looked at introduction to log analysis and collection, where we defined log analysis and collection as a process of gathering and consolidating and examining digital records or logs generated by computers, applications, and other devices. So we looked at the sources of log, servers, network devices, security appliances. We touched on key concepts, and we looked at the log formats as well. So we understand we were able to see what a log actually looks like. We're able to identify some common components in a log, like we talked about the timestamp, a very important component in a log format. And then we touched on fundamentals of log analysis. And we also looked at the best practices in log management, including the tools and the consideration for tools. We looked at the differences between a log management tool and a SIEM tool. And we also talked about why Microsoft Sentinel is a modern SIEM tool compared to other traditional um, SIEM tools and log management tool out there. So if you missed that class, please kindly go back and watch the video. And tonight, we are going to be looking at, okay, and that is myself. And we are going to be looking at ensuring that at the end of this class, we are equipped with foundational knowledge and skills to effectively collect and manage and analyze logs with respect to compliance requirements. And that has to do with legal and regulatory requirements. So we'll look at the introduction to key regulations and standards. Of course, there are some popular ones. We'll talk about them. And we'll also navigate some compliance requirements and look at some specific scenarios that would help us gain deep understanding of log collection and compliance in that context. So at the end of tonight's training, you would have gained a good understanding of log collection, analysis, and compliance, with our focus on some specific regulators. And you also have a deep understanding of regulatory compliance related to log management. And also, you have a strong understanding of log collection and compliance regulations. Excellent. Yeah, of course. Our exercise tonight would require everyone to engage like we did last week. So we'll have the ability to solve those quizzes together and collaborate together with everyone giving their input. So that is a brief overview of what we are doing tonight. So let's go into the topic of the day. But of course, we can't talk about log collection and compliance without looking at the general importance or essence of a log collection. So why is log collection? Why is it important? Why is it significant? So it's the foundation upon which organizations build their security posture and compliance framework. If there's nothing to track, if there's no data to look at, because all of these are data, they're information, the compliance framework are just going to be there because they are supposed to be, they are meant to be used against a particular measure. All right. So that's why the log collection is a foundation, because the what is being collected is data. Okay. So the data is needed. So it's also the systematic gathering. So systematic gathering of digital records generated by computer systems, applications, networks, and security devices. I'm sure this doesn't look strange to us. From what we learned last week, the logs are not just they're not just going to be collected randomly. There will be a convention to it, a systematic convention, so it's not all over the place. So that is why we are looking at this as one of the essence of getting one of the essence of collecting logs from systems, applications, or networks. Then these logs are also digital footprints of activities, transactions, events occurring across IT environments. That's just a very interesting summary. So what enables a security analyst to track any incident, to track any event, any activity, even within business sectors, within the business, even for non-technical people, there is always a digital footprint, and all these things are all these things are we are able to look at them because these digital footprints, these logs are present, they are being recorded somewhere, and we can see them. Then they contain valuable data. So the components of the data collected, like timestamps, user activities, systems error, and network traffic, and all et cetera, et cetera. They offer that granular view of operations and security related events. So it's really important that we know that we, as security analysts, especially within the operations context, log collection is really important. It is key to what we do. Then its significance, it says they are logs are the lifeblood of effective cybersecurity strategies. Okay, so because these logs contain data, because the work that is going to be done is being done around the data. So because there's data flow, data packets moving from one network to the other, and there's a lot of technical things happening that needs to be captured, not just for incidents alone, but because there are regulatory bodies as well that are interested in knowing that as an organization, you are putting in some effort to also ensure that your space is secure. Say, for example, I know that sometimes organizations they go to insurance, they want to be insured because they want to push some risk to the insurance company. And there are some things that the insurance guys would not even they would not even sign them up as their client if they themselves are not doing anything that requires even the minimum compliance for them to do as an organization before transferring some risks to the insurance company. So it's really significant for us for us to see for log collection to detect anomalies. It's significant because it helps to investigate incidents. It helps to enhance situational awareness. We've seen examples of that in the exercise that we did last week. And then fulfill compliance requirement, which is where we are going. All right. So now, the landscape of log collection is tied to variety of regulations and standards. And each of these standards has its set of requirements and it's aimed at ensuring these three things, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data. And it's important that the understanding of these regulations is to ensure that there's alignment of log management practices with the legal and industry benchmarks. So there must be a standard, and that is it. But let's remember that the fact that a company is in compliance doesn't mean that they're not going to have incidents or any cybersecurity incidents or attacks in their organization network. So compliance is even like the minimum requirement, like this is required. This is a standard that must be adhered to. So one of these regulatory body that we're looking at is one of these regulations that we are looking at is the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. So, and of course, there's another one, the Data Protection Act 2018. So this regulation, it requires the protection of personal data. So all sectors, organization handling personal data, especially handling EU citizens' personal data, regardless of the company size, this regulation affects any organization that processes personal data within the UK as well. And most of it applies to public and private sectors. If we move on to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA. So the interesting thing about this particular regulatory requirement is that this is one that is focused on the health sector, healthcare sector. So any sort of data within the health sector in the US, in the United States, it's very popular. All right. So this is where this particular regulatory body focuses on. Now we now have the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, call them SOX. So these particular one mandates the retention of financial records and logs So to ensure accuracy in financial reporting and prevent fraud, requiring logs to be maintained for specific durations. So any company, especially listed on US stock exchanges. So this particular regulation applies to them. It's the penalties that organizations get for non-compliance, especially with this particular regulatory body, is really, really high, and you don't even want to go there. So most financial services and companies that are listed on US stock exchange, they know they need to be in compliance with this because they need to protect information assets. Then we have the payment card industry security standard. I'm sure some of us would have heard about them, PCI DSS. So this particular one focuses on any organization that is handling card holder data. So the collection of data in this situation is around Visa cards, credit cards, So as long as you are handling cardholder data from major debit and credit card providers, you must ensure you're compliant. So if the organization is in the retail, e-commerce, and financial services, you can't afford any compromise of payment card data. And we know these things happen, yeah? And it's a high-risk area. However, companies must ensure that they are in compliance. Then we have the Federal Information Security Management Act. So this is also a US-based regulation. It governs the security of federal information systems, including the requirement for log collection, analysis, and retention. So to safeguard government data. So for the retention, on the retention side of things, so there's a requirement for the length of time you can keep data before you finally destroy the data. The organizations must be compliant with all of this. Otherwise, they may face compliance costs, they may lose contracts actually, or damage their reputation if they are not compliant with this. This one deals with government data especially. Then we have the Financial Conduct Authority. So these guys focus solely on financial services. They focus solely on financial services. I mean, like if there's any sort of breach or non-compliance, the organization would tend to pay a fine. In fact, it's also costly as well because they might have to remediate, and all of this costs a lot of money. So compliance is key because, well, you're dealing with a lot of data, transactional data, personal data of customers, and these data are really significant to people, to customers, and you don't want to mess up with them. That's why the regulatory body they make sure that they are looking into organizations' compliance status. And of course, we have the Cyber Essentials scheme. All right. So the Cyber Essentials scheme, that is basically a scheme for organizations that are bidding for government contracts. Okay. Organizations that are looking to have something to do with government, either in the future, they need to be compliant. They need to ensure even that the basic essentials of security practices are happening in their organization. Because the lack of basic cyber controls can also cause the company to have a data breach. So failure to implement such can lead to non-compliance, and it's at the end of the day you lose business. Okay, imagine an organization trying to get some sort of contracts from the government. They want to ensure that you are compliant. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide, where we are looking at these regulators, and we want to navigate the compliance requirements. So for GDPR and the Data Protection Act, what sort of data do they collect? So I broke this down. I did some research as well to ensure that we have clarity of the sort of data that they collect, and also included examples of what a compliance breach can look like. So for GDPR, they collect personal identification information such as names, addresses, and ID numbers, web data like location, IP addresses, cookies. I'm sure when you go on when you open a web page, you see the cookie pop-up page asking for your consent, RFID tags and all that. Then you have, yes, of course, some health and genetic data. So we it covers all sectors. Okay, sometimes it could be biometric data, what you have. So what's an example of a compliance breach that could happen in this case? So I included the unauthorized access to a database containing customers' profile with their personal details. That is an example. It could also be failure to obtain consent, proper consent, yes, before processing personal data. So they're gone are the days where you just ask people to complete a form and then you are asking for some personal data. And if people they are at liberty to consent to sharing their data or not. So you can't really expect that to happen, because all of these are meant to be in place. So we have the payment PCI DSS, all right? What sort of data is collected? Card details, your credit card numbers, your um your 16-digit numbers, your account name, cardholder name, service code, expiration date, all those details, the card verification value, at the back of your credit card. It's any sort of compromise of any payment card data, probably due to an insecure storage or transmission. and a hacker gains access to such, it's a massive compliance breach, because as an organization, you are meant to ensure that you are PCI DSS compliant. Then we'll look at the FCA regulations. I remember maybe some years back, I was working with a particular company, a loan company anyway. So I was working with the compliance team, and as well ensuring systems assurance. And one of it was actually a remediation project. And an incident happened, and it has cost consumers money. And the FCA was on that particular organization. I don't want to mention their name. So what happened eventually was that at the point of trying to put the system in place based on the reason why they are being fined in the first place, I was caught up in a particular uh, uh, compliance verification process. And I said, I'm sorry, I will not put my signature on this. It's enough that the company is already fined, but if I put my signature on this, I believe this is going to cause another issue, because it takes only one customer to blow the whistle, and then the rest of the world follows. So I made sure that I spoke with I think the lead compliance head. I had to put in all my evidences and all that, because I felt that no, this is wrong. The data I'm seeing in production is different from what I am seeing in the pre-production, and they are meant to look alike because both are isolated environments. So it took about a couple of weeks before they had to refix the issue. So attention to detail is really, really important for us in our roles as well, so that we know, while we are there, we know we are helping the organization to ensure that our work is also contributing to the security posture of the organization. We are not just doing it. And of course, I think we must also be passionate about what we are doing, and know, if you have any doubts, to be honest, trust me, just speak up. It's better we do that. Sometimes I look back to that time and I wonder, what if I didn't speak up? You understand? So, but I was glad I did, because I noticed that it was going to cost the company another fine. And guess what? I use that example in my interviews a lot of times. So I think that was where I really got very familiar with FCA regulations. And we also have the Health and Social Care Act. They collect patient health records, their treatment history, biometric identifiers, and genetic information. Um, something as hmm, something as that looks like as simple as, I don't know if simple is the right word, a lost laptop, or you forgot your laptop on the train. These days where people work from home, it must be reported immediately, because you don't know when it's going to get hold of that laptop. And you know, the world is full of different people, and if some sensitive data are on it, and the bad actors get hold of it, it can cost the company a lot. This example just speaks of a compliance breach where a laptop is lost and it contained unencrypted patient records from a private healthcare provider. So we look at the Cyber Essentials scheme. So yeah, what sort of data is collected? Mostly login credentials, basic things, emails, internal communications. So the the company intellectual property, yeah, so anything that also has to do with customers' personal and financial information. So the phishing attack looked really basic. That's why for the in the UK, this scheme is like a really basic one that any organization, all right, whether you are in the public or private sector, you're an SME, you know, it's it's important that you pay attention to this because you don't potentially you might want to work with another business that works with the government. It might not even be you directly working with the government, but another business that works with the government. So it can cost you loss of data if something as simple as um, communication of security awareness is not even in a minimum requirement for your organization. So this is important because Cyber Essentials covers basic security controls, and it's important that every organization look into this. And we have the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. This is the one that covers um, data within around health information, payment history related to healthcare. All these are sensitive data, and they are meant to be confidential information. Any unauthorized disclosure of this protected health information from a healthcare clinic's database, any of these due to inadequate security control is a breach, and it can result um, in a substantial fine. Yes, nobody wants their medical records to be shared to the public. So, and we look at this the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, also US based. They uh, they look at financial reports and emails, audit logs, records, transactions and accounting details. Of course, organizations there are also frameworks as well, that also guide how organizations um, set all of this up, and what they are meant to do in terms of the processes that needs to be followed in ensuring that all of this take place, internal audit, external audit, and what they put in place, the controls they put in place. So they govern that, and any sort of alteration or fraudulent manipulation of financial records that is not detected due to lack of proper log management and review. So why our logs are important. They are not just there for decoration. They need to be monitored. So uh, companies don't want to be fined, uh, even though the cost implications could be penalties. And in fact, I think sometimes it could be criminal charges for company executives. So that is the SOX. And we think this is the last one. the Federal Information Security Management Act. I think we do have a version of for the UK. All right. So these are like government emails and communication records. We don't want any of this data to be leaked. So classified and sensitive government data, personal information of citizens collected by federal agencies. So any sort of leakage, I'm sure we've come across news of email leakages and all that in the government, within the government sector. We know what that resulted into. It's the cost is high, damage to reputation, loss of contracts, yeah. And then I think even the cost of compliance, yeah, it's part of what it's part of the cost implementation. So I think, yeah. So this breakdown is just to bring us home to a focused overview of each regulation. So we've looked at the industry focus, we've looked at the sort of data that can be compromised, okay, and the kind of breach examples and some sort of financial implications that can happen in case of non-compliance. All right. So that is it. I would suggest that in your spare time, it's good. It would be good to research more on all of this so that we can have you have uh, another view. I'm sure the people on this on this particular group, you do that a lot. So I will pause the recording here so that we can have a separate recording for the quiz and workshop. Everything is related to what we've done. It's just to ensure that uh, all of this is well understood by everyone, and we can have some sort of discussion around it for the next 15 minutes. Thank you.